The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are coming to you from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. I'm very excited about today's show. We're really thrilled to have you guys here with us on this wonderful Monday. So like we're full on fall now, like we're there. We're like just a couple of weeks from Halloween. I know I was bringing this up back in August and it's like it's here, right? And I love this time of year. I hope that you guys too. I love the change of seasons. I know that it's hard for some people, but I absolutely love it. It's, but I think it's important to be in the now and celebrate the things that, I know sometimes you're like, oh, I just want to have lemonade and barbecue because that's what we were doing in August. But, maybe you have that one more time, but now it's time to turn to the cider and the donuts, which is not a bad thing, my friends. Like if the thing you're switching to is cider and donuts, it's not such a bad thing. So anyway, I hope you're embracing the fall. I know that I am. So we are going to be with you for the next hour here talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. And we've got a lot of different things that we're going to cover. But the whole thing, we want to be interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're doing. We want to know what's relevant to you. So Traven's going to show you some of the different things, some of the different ways that you can connect with us here at Autism Live. And while he does that, I want to remind you that we have a homepage, and that's autism-live.com. And when you go there, there are a lot of things to do there. And I really think it's important that you pick and choose what things that are important to you. If you want to be watching the live show, there's a way to watch a live show. Sometimes on some servers, it just automatically pops up when it's live. On other servers, it flashes red that says live, and you can click on that and it opens up to full screen. If we are not live right now, you can watch the most recently recorded live show because it's in the archives under recent, right? But you can look through and find like all of the content that we've been doing over the last 8 and some years, right? So I hope that that's useful to you. But the other thing that you can do directly from our homepage is chat. There is a chat button at the very bottom of the page. You click on that, it opens up into a little box and you can type away. You hit enter and then it shows up here on my screen. And in that way, you and I can be having a conversation. But even better than that, I can take your question and I can pose it to the experts that we have here in the show. So that is a super cool feature. It is completely anonymous. Nobody gets to know who you are or where you're coming from, including me. And it's completely free to you. Now, there are other places that you can chat with us that are totally free too. Like we're live streaming on Facebook and you can chat with us there. And we love to interact with you there. Same thing with YouTube. We are also on Twitter and Periscope. We don't interact as much there because we kind of focus between those three, although we will get around to answering your questions on Twitter and Periscope. And we're starting to come to you in more ways too. But in any case, whatever way makes the most sense for you. And what I do like about the live feature on our homepage is that you have that total anonymity. When you write something on Facebook, everybody can see it and see what your Facebook name is. So a lot of times that's perfectly okay, but if you have something of a more sensitive nature, go to our homepage. And I will also say this, if you have something that's long and extended that you don't really want to put, because you're only allowed a certain number of characters, It's a lot, but still not enough sometimes. You can always write directly to me. My email is s.penrod@autism-live.com. For those of you who are watching on iTunes and have figured out how to do just the download where you can take us walking or in the car and you don't have the picture in front of you so you can't see that on the screen, it's S as in Sam dot Penrod, P as in Peter, E as in elephant, N as in Nancy, R as in robot, O as in Oscar, D as in dog, at autism, you guys know how to spell that, then hyphen, that's the dash that's in the middle, not on it's not a underscore, it's the dash, right? Live, LIV as in Victor, E as in elephant.com. And so feel free to write to me. You know, I love to hear from you guys. So let's talk a little bit, because today is Thursday. Well, first I want to say this, the disclaimer, which I sometimes forget to give, is that we have a lot of experts that are here on the show. And guess what? I am not one of them. That's right. I am not an expert in autism. My role here, I like to think of myself as having an informed opinion, right? But my role here is really to be the switchboard operator. So you write or call in and say, here's what I'm looking for. And sometimes, because I've been here for a long time interviewing people, I can tell you, oh, you know who you need to talk to? Like, you know, you need to talk to this person, and here's what their website is, and sort of plug you in, right? Like the old time switchboard operator. Other times I will say to you, you know, I don't know. Let me see what I can find out. Let me go to my people and see what they know, and then let's see what we can figure out. But my purpose here, because I am a parent of somebody who was diagnosed on the autism spectrum when he was 2.5, right? And I talk about it all the time, that I felt really horribly alone. My thing that I used to say was, you know, I feel like I'm alone on Mars. And I found out that I wasn't. It took me a while to find that out. And it took me longer to find out, oh, you know, there are things that you can do. This is not just a, like, you know, sit and sigh and feel bad. Quite the contrary. I love that Lisa Ackerman says, this is not game over. When your child is diagnosed with autism, it is not game over. It is game on. And if you don't know which game to get in and what t-shirt to wear and, you know, where to show up, it's really hard to get your game on, right? So part of why we're here and why I'm here is because I want to help you to find the resources that are important to you. And by the way, when I say you, I am talking to the larger autism community. You might be someone who is on the spectrum yourself, and we welcome you. I want to help you to get to the resources you need. You might be a parent of someone who is on the autism spectrum. You might be a teacher. You might be a caregiver who is not a parent, but is being the person who is responsible for taking care of this individual. You might be a spouse who's discovered that your spouse is on the autism spectrum, right? You might be a sibling. You know, whatever your qualification is, I will tell you the baseline is that we all care about people who are on the autism spectrum. So we are card-carrying members of that larger autism community, and I want to help you to get to the resources that are going to help you. You. So that's why I'm here. That's why we're here. We hold hands. We do it together. Si se puede, right? Nobody is on Mars by themselves. Maybe we're all on Mars together. But, you know, let's take comfort in that. Let's huddle together. Let's use our combined force to move this Earth or this Mars in a direction that is helpful to those who we love, including if that is yourself, right? So that's what we're all about here. So that's our little disclaimer. But no, I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody who cares really deeply. And I have a lot of karmic debt to pay down because my son got the help that he needed. And it has made all the difference, my friend. All the difference. Okay, so on Thursdays, one of the things that we like to do to help you on your way is something we call the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about. We first give you the actual definition, which often all we really can do with it is make fun of it, because really, who can understand it, right? Then we move on to the working definition, and hopefully that's a little bit less convoluted, although sometimes not so much. And then I try to give you an example so that we can all have a place to start to understand, but don't get upset with yourself if you don't get it the first time around. That's why we make videos of these things. You can watch them again and again. And sometimes it takes you to see it experientially and you go, oh, that's that thing she was talking about, I think. By George, I think I get it, right? So, with any luck. So, today's term is one of the most misunderstood terms in the field of ABA. I think mostly from the parent perspective, but I don't know. I think everybody gets a little misunderstood with this. So, it's extinction. Now, this is one of those class of words where you go, well, I know what extinction is. I know all about when the dinosaurs went extinct, right? Except that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the psychology word extinction, and we're talking about a procedure in ABA, applied behavior analysis. So let's take a look at what the actual definition of extinction is. Extinction is the process of withholding a functional reinforcer of a target behavior in order to reduce or remove it completely, but it can also involve the interruption of the response reinforcer relation. And we took this directly from a book so that I could show you that this is the kind of stuff when you go to look these terms up you get. Now, if you are already studying ABA, this might make sense to you. And you might go, yes, I know what that means. But if you are a parent and your child, or a caregiver, right? And your child was just diagnosed with autism, and you're sitting with your experts, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to put it on extinction," and you go, oh, "Dinosaurs? We're going to kill some dinosaurs, right?" And you're like, "No, I'll just look it up, right? I'll get a book and I'll look it up." And you get this, and you're like, yeah, I'm no closer to knowing exactly what it is we're talking about. That's why we do this. So let's take a look at our working definition to see if we can't help to figure this out. So here's our working definition of extinction, not giving the individual whatever is causing the behavior. Okay, now we're going to back that train way up. Because one of the things that we learn in applied behavior analysis is that if somebody does something, especially on a repeated basis, then they're getting some sort of a paycheck for it. Everything that you do, everything that I do, everything that everybody we love and work with does on a regular basis, they do it for a paycheck. Now, two people can do the same behavior and get a totally different paycheck for it, right? Like maybe one person is downstairs outside the building smoking up a storm, right? And if we looked at it and took a bunch of data on it and did some tests on it, we would find that the paycheck that that person is getting for it is that it's social time and it's a break. They get to leave their office, walk downstairs, stand out in the fresh air, and talk with other people and, take deep breaths, and it's social, right? But then we find that the main thing about it is that they're having this social interaction, right? But there were a lot of things there that I listed off: a break, the fresh air, all these other things. But for them, the main thing is it's social, right? And if we try to take that away from them and say, you don't get to smoke anymore, and they don't get the social paycheck, that's a bummer, right? Now, maybe somebody else smokes because it's the only time that they get alone time, because nobody else in their office smokes. It's the only time that they get to really, truly take a break and be by themselves. So do you see how it's the same behavior, two entirely different paychecks? That's the problem, that sometimes as parents, we see a behavior and we go, oh, well, I should do this, without asking ourselves, wait a second, what's the paycheck here? Why is the person doing this? And when you do an extinction procedure, what you do is that you say, whatever the paycheck was, we're going to cut that off at the pass. We're going to stop giving the paycheck for that. So for the person who was smoking so that they could have social time, we would remove that. We would find a way, if it's an adult who understands, we would say to them, look, the only, now you cannot talk to people while you're downstairs. The only place you can go and smoke is completely by yourself. And maybe if that social thing was really the reason why they were smoking, maybe we would see them smoke less, maybe even stop smoking, right? But we would have to make sure that they never got social interaction for that thing. Now, for the other person, they were doing it to have time alone. If we go to them and go, oh, we're cutting off all of your social interaction while you're smoking, is that going to stop them from smoking? No, it's the very reason why they were doing it, right? So instead, we would make it so that every time they smoked, there were interruptions and that they never really got the alone time. And instead, we would give them alone time someplace else, but make sure that cigarettes weren't available there. That's a really important thing. right? But when we put something on extinction, it means we are no longer going to give it the reinforcer that we already researched and found was the paycheck for it. So think about your kiddo for a minute. Why does your kiddo do the things that are the most upsetting to you? Classic example is that you're in the grocery store and you're at the checkout aisle and you head into that like tunnel, right? It's like the chute that they put bulls in before they do the, the bull riding. You go into the chute with your shopping cart and now you're in this contained environment and your child starts to go off, right? What is the paycheck? What is the reason that, what is it that your child wants? That's the question we always want to ask ourselves. What do they want right now? Now look, it's not always the same. Sometimes the child is wanting your attention, right? So if we were doing an extinction procedure and we found out that your child fusses and tantrums in the checkout for attention, then we would not give it the attention, right? That doesn't mean completely ignoring the child, but we don't give them attention. It might be that we boil it down to eye contact and talking to. Well, you can interact with your child a lot without giving eye contact and speaking to them. I can picture myself at the checkout with my son and him doing something and, me putting a hand, to make sure that he's not throwing anything, right? But I'm talking to the checkout and I'm not giving him my attention because that's the thing he wants, right? We do that all the time as parents, don't we? So a lot of times people misunderstand and think that extinction means ignoring. No. Extinction means not giving it the paycheck. Now, if attention was the thing, then it's planned ignoring, which is different than just ignoring, okay? I hope you can see the difference. But often, extinction is not about attention. So this one size fits all, oh, it's about ignoring, drives me crazy, because what if the reason why your child is tantruming in the chute is because they know that typically when they do that with dad and grandma, they get, a candy bar. And so they're going to fuss until they get to the candy bar. So the extinction would be to not give them the candy bar, okay? And so you just you let them fuss, tantrum, whatever, and there is no paycheck, there is no candy bar, because what we see is that if often enough we separate the paycheck from the behavior, they will start, and if we train them to do something else to get the paycheck, then that behavior stops. That's putting it on extinction. And then like the dinosaurs, it goes away. Okay, so that's what extinction is about. And one of the classic examples, and this is the one where I got it, was because I thought, oh, extinction equals ignoring. We're not gonna give that the attention, right? But my son hit a certain point when he was doing homework, and he was doing this thing where we would sit down to do the homework and he didn't want to do the homework. So he'd have his little pencil, he'd be writing and he would go, oh, the pencil fell. And then he would be down on the floor getting the pencil, and then he'd find something down there to play with, and it'd be 5 minutes before we could get him back in the chair. We went to our ABA team and we were like, what are we going to do about this? And they said, well, they looked at the whole thing and they do this scientific procedure and they determined that he, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist, right? But he was throwing the pencil to escape doing the homework. So we needed to put it on extinction, which meant that he wouldn't, no matter what happened, he wasn't going to get a break from the homework. So we started with a big old cup of pencils. So he would throw a pencil, and it took two of us. The therapist would be there. He would throw the pencil, and I would immediately put the other pencil into his hand, and she would have his hand and be doing no break. Not even 2 seconds, you guys. Not even 2 seconds. There was a time when and then we stopped doing it with a therapist. It was just me, and he was like, oh, I got her. So he threw the pencil on the ground, and I took him with me, and we went to the ground, and I stuck the pencil, and he, did it on the ground with the pencil, and that's when he went, oh, this pencil thing isn't working for me anymore. And that was the end of the pencil thing. Extinction works. It really works. But don't forget, it's separating the behavior from the thing that was the paycheck. You must know what the paycheck is before you decide what you're going to do. How can you decide what you're going to do if you don't know what it is? Go back to the example of smoking. If we do just willy-nilly, even though it's the same behavior, we're not going to get it right. In fact, you can make it worse. So you got to know what they call it, the function of the behavior, before you decide what your extinction procedure is going to look like. But it's separating the paycheck from the behavior. Extinction, it's fabulous. Okay, moving on. Boy, that took a while. But moving on, we always have a question of the day for you. And our question today, and keep in mind that you can answer this on Facebook, on YouTube, whatever, or on the live feature. What's your happy place? Where do you like to go to be happy? What makes you really down in your bones, really, really happy? It can be a place in your house, it can be a place in your mind, it can be a place out in the world. I have to say that I do think that the happiest place on earth is one of my happy places. There is something magical about when my family goes to Disneyland, and please know, I don't ride the rides. It's time away with the three of us. And it has been for the longest time because I have the great fortune to live in Southern California. So I have memories of when he was 2 and, hard memories, in fact, but of how we overcame that. And I get to see my 2 boys together, my husband and my son. I call them my boys. And I always say I never love my husband more than when we're at Disneyland. He's just fun to be with. And when we don't have the rest of the world to think about, I enjoy him more at Disneyland than he's a big kid. And I get to, I sit while they ride on a ride, I'll sit and read a book, which is great time for me. And I get to people watch and all these different things. And then I'll see them walking up and it just, fills me with love, right? So that's the happiest place on earth is definitely one of my happy places. What about you? What are your happy places? And do you get enough time to be there? And how can you make more time to be in your happy place? I got to get myself to Disneyland soon. But anyway, write into us because we love to hear about that. And then finally, we always have a topic of the week. And our continuing topic this week, which is super, super relevant to everything. You ready? Dun, da, da, da. It's stuck. Trayvon, it's stuck. Uh-oh. And now I've totally forgotten what it is because it threw me off. I have no idea what the topic of the week is. So we're going to patter until, there it is. When things get worse before they get better. So here's the deal. One of the things that we need to know about extinction, that's why I was saying it's really, really relevant. When you do an extinction procedure, very often, the first signal that it's working right is that the behavior gets worse all of a sudden. You put the extinction procedure in and it gets worse because there's something called an extinction burst. And that means that the person does a last-ditched effort to they're like, what's going on here? This worked before. I'm going to try extra hard to get the thing that I was getting before when I would do this behavior, right? We all do this. This is not tied to IQ or age or ability. I always use the example of me going into the bathroom and flicking the light switch, expecting the light to come on, and it doesn't because the light has burned out. And what do? And yes, I have a master's degree. I stand there and go like this, putting it up and down because I'm like, it worked before. I'm not even thinking, it's just behavior. You know what I'm saying? And it's very common that things will get worse before they get better. When you put an extinction procedure in place, I always like to tell myself, prepare yourself, because it's like, the poo is going to hit the fan for a couple of days because they are used to getting the paycheck and they're not going to get the paycheck and they are not going to be happy. I'm going to settle in. Know that this is just going to be for a couple of days because we're going to fix this. We're going to fix this right here, right now, right? But you got to be girded and ready for the extinction burst. And I'll tell you something, what helps is knowing what extinction burst is, knowing that it's coming, because then when it's there, you go, we got it right. We got the paycheck right. That's why my child is freaking out right now because we got the paycheck right, which means we're doing the right thing, and then you got to follow through. So, just know that sometimes things have to get worse before they get better, right? It's the rainstorm, then the clouds part, and you got the sunny skies. So, and that's life. It's not just extinction procedure, that's life. But when you know it's coming, it's that much easier, I hope. So anyway, on the show today, we're really excited for you because we have first up the fabulous and wonderful Bonnie Yates. She's a special education attorney and an awesome mom, and she's going to be talking with us about topics that you're going to love. And then for the first time ever on the show, a little bit later, we have folks from the New York Transit Museum that are going to be joining us. And I'm so excited about this because, there's a lot of folks on the spectrum who really love trains and other vehicles and train systems. We see that it's a passion of a lot of people who are on the autism spectrum. There have been movies made about this. There have been people that have gotten into trouble over how much they really love, for instance, the New York transit system, which is the most incredible transit system in the world. So there is a museum, and they've got some really special things that are coming up, and we're just so excited about having them on the show. So that's going to be towards the end of the show, and we're really looking forward to it. But first, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back with the wonderful Bonnie Yates. So don't go anywhere. Back after these messages.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them.
Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
it's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
Is a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome.
Love the field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are joined right now by the fabulous Bonnie Yates from the law firm of Jargon. She's a special education attorney, and she's here to talk about topics that help us to know how to better represent our children and get more representation so we can get more help. Bonnie, welcome, and tell us a little bit about Jargon.
Hi, Shannon. Thank you for having me. Jargon is a six-attorney special education firm. We're based in Culver City. We do special education, regional center services, disability discrimination, which encompasses something we're going to be talking about soon, injuries to students at school as well, even though those are personal injury type cases in an aspect. And we also do higher education, which would be helping students that are discriminated against in college. We are answering your questions on the air according to California and federal law, because I'm licensed in California, and IDEA is a federal statute. If you're in another state or you have a specific legal problem, you need a specific consultation with an attorney that can focus on your singular problem. Here, we're basically talking to you about your rights, and we're not really giving you specific legal advice.
Okay, great disclaimer. So last week we had been talking about private placement. Was there anything that you wanted to add from that before we move on to school injury?
I did want to just read you all some citations that I forgot about on the air, and I think you can use it as a little test to test your understanding and see if you understand this now or you have more questions. So when a parent believes that a public educational placement is denying her child FAPE, the parent may choose to remove the child to a private placement. However, parents who remove the child do so at their own financial risk. That's two cases, WG versus Board of Trustees of Target Range School District, and also Florence County School District versus Carter. This means that the parents may have to pay the full cost of the private placement. A parent's dissatisfaction with the district's offer of FAPE does not create the basis for the district to fund a private placement unless the district fails to offer the student a FAPE. So we talked about that last time, how you would show that the district had failed to offer FAPE and how your student, what data you would need to show your student made progress in the private placement. Another thing that comes up for students that are in private placements is that the district still has an obligation to hold an annual IEP and revise the student's IEP, and that's not something that I mentioned, but that can be important because you want to make sure that your student has an IEP that he or she can take with him to college that would list what his accommodations were. And it's also important that the district be required to continue on an annual basis trying to provide FAPE to the student. So that was something I didn't say last time.
Okay, so point of clarification. So even though your student is now at another school, their home school has to hold an IEP for them every year?
They do.
Okay, didn't know that.
Yeah.
What if they fail to do that?
Sorry?
If they fail to?
That can cause problems for them. I mean, I had a reimbursement case where we knew we were going to be looking for a lot of money, and we knew sorry about the noises in the background with the computer. The most we could get in California was 2 years of reimbursement. So we gave the notice almost as soon as the student was placed. And because it was LA Unified, we were fairly confident that this notice would go into a black hole. You'll recall my discussion last week about strategic considerations about where to give the notice. And sure enough, it did go into a black hole. And so right before the statute of limitations ran, I filed for due process. By then, the family had 2 years of reimbursements that they were owed for the private school. And when the district got to the initial meeting, they were mad that I hadn't done more to try to get a meeting with them. But I had done enough. I'd given the notice, and then a couple times hence I'd followed up, and nobody ever followed up with me, and that was that. So they have a duty annually to have an IEP meeting. And part of the reason they're supposed to is because I think that it is a fail-safe in terms of making sure that people don't just disappear. I also want to say, and I didn't say this last time, that when the notice requirement is fairly new, it's something that's come up within the last 15 years or so, maybe 20 years. It used to be the case that people would just take their kids out of school and they'd disappear for 3 years, which was the statute of limitations then in California before 2004. And then they weren't even required to give notice. And so the public schools were getting surprised because they would have somebody show up with 3 years worth of claims, and it was like, wow, we didn't even notice you were gone.
Wow.
So that's another component of this. Anyway, it's also a requirement in California, in my view, that if you have a private school placement, the district ought to try to get the private school representatives to participate in the IEP meeting. That's just a little goodie about that for you all. Reimbursement not required if the lead educational agency makes FAPE available. Private school tuition reimbursement is available as a remedy under the IDEA where a court or hearing officer finds the public agency did not make FAPE available to the student in a timely manner prior to the private enrollment, and the private placement is determined to be appropriate. So you can see there that the courts are always looking at the two questions. One was FAPE offered, and two was the private placement appropriate. And that's what we talked about last time. And the specific cases go through and they look at whether or not there's progress data. So, I mean, here's a case where out of the District of Columbia, a high schooler's academic and social success in his unilateral private placement undermined the District of Columbia's claim that the private school did not meet IDEA standards for purposes of the parent's reimbursement request. So there we're cycling back to, if you have academic and social progress in excess, in significant excess of what you had in public school, you're probably on your way to getting reimbursed. So there has to be no FAPE and there has to be progress. What else did I want to tell you? Well, that might actually be enough. I think those were the main other points I wanted to make about private school placements, unless you have any questions about that.
We've been promising the injury, and now we got about 6 minutes. So let's get started on it.
We're going to start this now, and we're going to keep cruising.
Yes.
So I thought about this problem that we had discussed on the air last week, where the child came home from school with an injury. Nobody notified the parent about it. What, as if they think the parent isn't going to notice? No, they know about it, but they don't want to call attention to the fact that they know. My theory is because they figure if they call attention to the fact that they know, it's going to cause more work and problems for them. Once upon a time when I was a new lawyer, and a lot of times since then, people have said, and I think it's so true, it's not the mistake you make that kills you, it's the cover-up. So I really think that that's operative in these situations, and I think these things are handled wrong. And that mom was so distressed, and you brought up, how do you feel like you could ever send your student back to that school? And the law in California has been in flux as far as the Hughes bill, which has to do with emergency behavior interventions, and the requirements as to whether school districts do or don't use behavior incident reports if they restrain a student at school. And so I thought about this, and I wasn't really satisfied about the answer that I gave last week, which is I told the mom to document it and let the school know that they were being observed and that it wasn't going to work to not take ownership in the future if the student was injured at school. So I said to Rosa Hirji, who's the managing partner here, who wrote an article about injuries at school, which I think I sent to you, Shannon, but if I didn't, I can. And she said, I said, well, what would you recommend for people if this is happening repeatedly and you're asking for incident reports and you're not getting them from the school because the school isn't creating incident reports? And she said, I would tell the school district that you were going to report them for child abuse, and I would take all my documentation and I would make a report to DCFS.
Wow.
And I thought that was a great answer.
Yeah.
So I think that that's definitely something you can do. And for every injury that happens, you should demand a written incident report, and you should demand that they dialogue with you about what happened. Don't do any of this orally. It all has to be done in writing.
Wow.
So that's how to deal with the practical problem of having an injury at school. But what it doesn't explain to you is why the school is responsible when your child is injured at school. And that's what we're going to turn to next.
Okay. Do we want to save that for next week, or do you want to start in now?
You tell me.
We have about 3.5 minutes. Maybe
okay, let's get started.
Okay, let's get started.
So the first thing I'm going to do is give you a framework for injuries at school, and then I'm going to talk to you about the law, which is a very complex body of law, and there's a lot of information about it, and it varies from state to state. But students are injured way too frequently at school, about 3.5 million times during the school year. There are different types of injuries: intentional injuries, which would include bullying, abuse by adults, and then there are things that would be negligent, like failure to conduct a background check on an employee, failure to properly train an employee, failure to properly supervise an employee, or for that matter, supervise another student. So there is this kind of overlap here between intentional and negligent stuff that, you know, like somebody falls off the monkey bars. Obviously, that's not purposeful unless somebody else pushed the kid. But what you have is the school district is in loco parentis, meaning in the place of the parent for the hours that the student is at school. And there is a duty that the schools have to provide a safe environment as far as shelter, food, and transportation. And we do know that, you know, kids get sick in the cafeteria. We know that kids get sick from mold in school, you know, or asbestos. We know that there are problems with public transportation on the bus all the time. And so those are some of the areas that you have these injuries occurring. You can have a bus driver be negligent in his operation of the bus. You could have improper training of that driver by the school district, assuming the bus company is not a private company, it's a school district bus. You could have a malfunctioning bus that causes injuries to students, or you could have negligence of another driver. But the kinds of things you're looking into is whether the supervision and oversight in a given situation is negligent. So you can have somebody that gets hurt on the yard, you can have a slip and fall, you can have a toxin exposure, and so on. That's, you know, some of the places that we have, sorry about the rattling papers, injuries at school. According to what I looked at, there are, you know, over 90,000 visits to the emergency room for assaults at school. Most of these are intentional acts. There are a lot of transportation problems. State laws protect against gross negligence, and you also have federal laws, federal civil rights laws that protect against school officials acting with deliberate indifference. In the area of restraints, you have mechanical restraints, chemical restraints, and physical restraints. And seclusion is like a form of restraint.
So I think we need to leave it there, Bonnie, and pick that up, because you know, honestly, it's a lot to take in.
Okay. And there's a lot more coming. So
okay. All right. Week. So tell them how to reach you at Hirji and Chow.
310-391-0330. If you're in Southern California, we'd love to set up a complimentary consultation for you. If you're calling from elsewhere and you need help, we'll still try to steer you in the right direction.
Okay.
And the website is www.lawyer4children.com.
Thank
you.
And
we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, Bonnie Yates. We will see you next week. You guys stick with us. We're going to be right back after these messages.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. This month we're going to be creating our very own Any Animal mask. As we work on this activity, you'll notice that these icons will pop up. These icons tell you important information about what skills we're using to create this craft and how to find them on Skills. Skills is an ABA-based online program that helps parents create individualized programs for their children on the autism spectrum. If you're a Skills user, this will make the most out of this artful and educational activity. Well, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are glue, scissors, hole puncher, markers or crayons, pipe cleaners, and the template. So step 1, you're going to go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live, and you're going to print out the templates that you see there. Once your templates are printed out, then you're going to take your scissors and cut them all out. Now that you're finished cutting out all the templates, you're going to have several different shapes. This is because this will give you a variety of different features you can use to make different kinds of animals. So this is the fun part. You're going to take these templates and arrange them into any kind of animal you can think of. Use your imagination. There is no wrong answer. Once you figured out the animal that you're going to want to make, take out your glue and glue them onto the mask. Once that's been finished, then you're going to take your markers and crayons and decorate it, drawing in the features a little bit clearly and just making it as colorful as you'd like it to be. For the owl that I made, I had to cut out some more holes through it. Once your animal mask is done being decorated, you're going to use your hole puncher to make holes on the side so you can fasten it to your face. Then you're going to take your pipe cleaner, just thread them through the holes, and then voila, your mask is ready to go. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity with me. Until next time, guys, craft on. To find more about Skills and to access all of the lessons you saw in today's Smarty, visit skillsforautism.com and click on the parent icon. Skills, the online autism solution.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I am so excited about our next interview because I know how many of you are out there who love trains and transit, and there is no more exciting transit system than the New York transit system. And joining us right now on the phone are Jennifer Kalter and Sara Thomson from the New York Transit Museum. Now, these two ladies, I could spend the next hour giving you their credentials. Let me just give you a couple of highlights here. So Jennifer Kalter is the Assistant Deputy Director for Education and Public Programs at the New York Transit Museum. She has spent over 20 years working in museum education for places that you would recognize, like the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Brooklyn Museum, the Museum of Biblical Art, the Jewish Museum, the American Folk Art Museum, I mean, for heaven's sake, right? But she was also the Director of Education at Please Touch Museum. How much do we love that name? Where she focused on aligning education initiatives to a new strategic plan. And we're really excited that now she's at the New York Transit Museum. Now, Sara is the Special Education and Access Coordinator at the New York Transit Museum, and she manages all of the access programs for children and adults and oversees the accessibility of the museum. And she has been working in this field for quite a long time and comes to this through an education background, including working for 9 years at a school for children with multiple disabilities. She is a current steering committee member of the Museum, Arts, and Culture Access Consortium, and she has an MA in Museum Studies from Johns Hopkins University and a BA in History from Clemson. And my goodness, I didn't even say that Jennifer has an MA in Art History from Hunter College and from the City University of New York. My goodness, there couldn't be two more qualified people to be with us and talk about museums and education. How excited are we? So ladies, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. We're happy to be here.
We're thrilled that you're here. And we just wanted to say, we originally were going to try and have them on via Skype, but their museum is underground. So we wanted to make sure that you guys could hear them, and that's why we went to the phone. But throughout, we're going to be showing you pictures that are from the museum. But ladies, could one or both of you give us a little bit of an introduction to what the New York Transit Museum is, where it is, and how we can access it?
Sure. Thank you for that introduction. We're glad to be talking with you today. For folks that might not have been to the Transit Museum before, the New York Transit Museum is one of the city's leading cultural institutions, and it's the largest museum in the U.S. devoted to urban public transportation. As you mentioned, we are housed in a 1936 decommissioned subway station. We're in downtown Brooklyn, New York. And the museum has really long been a magnet for youth on the autism spectrum who enthusiastically embrace our transit content.
And how? I mean, to the point where there have been movies made about this, documentary and other, about how much individuals on the spectrum love the New York transit system. And how could you not? It is amazing. And it always boggles my mind that it was started at a point in time when I can't even imagine how they thought they could do that. It really is, I think, one of the wonders of the world. So so we know now that it's in Brooklyn. How often are you open? Is it 7 days a week? Like and where can we find more information?
Sure. So we week. We're closed on Mondays. We open during the week at 10 o'clock in the morning and close at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then the weekends we open at 11 a.m. and close at 5. And we have a host of programming both during the week and on the weekend for our visitors. We like to program around our vintage trains that are on our lower platform level in the museum. And we also have an upper level of the museum, mezzanine level, that has rotating temporary exhibitions, and there's a lot of interesting content there as well for people to come back and visit again and again and see something new.
And I know you can't feel it on the phone, but we're all salivating. Because we all know somebody in our lives who this would be a really amazing place to go and visit. So you also are, because of the background that both of you have amazing programs that make sure that people of all abilities are able to access the museum. You're very committed to neurodiversity, and I know that our audience is thrilled to hear that. You have very specific programs. So why don't we start to talk through some of the different programs that you have available, the first one being Subway Sleuths. Who wants to tell us about that?
I will. I'm Sara. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. So Subway Sleuths, which has been in existence at the museum since about 2010. Like you said, using that love and passion for transit to motivate our youth on the autism spectrum to practice navigating some social situations with their peers that maybe they otherwise would not be as comfortable doing, but because they're so excited to be in our museum and talking about something that they love is really what the program is based on, and making it a very unique museum program. And so for Subway Sleuths, every session is facilitated by a special educator, a speech-language pathologist, and of course a museum educator, so that we are really focusing on accomplishing some of those communication and social skill goals.
And we actually have a video of Subway Sleuths, and when we come back from that, we're going to show you that. Then we're going to talk about some of the other programs that are available. But take a look at Subway Sleuths.
Transit Museum is extremely honored and excited to be receiving the National Arts and Humanities Youth Program Award, which is given by the President's Committee on the Arts and the Humanities. This is the highest award in the nation for out-of-school programs, and we are so honored that Subway Sleuths is receiving this award. Subway Sleuths is an out-of-school program offered by the Transit Museum for children on the autism spectrum, and it's for children who are train enthusiasts. So these are students, young people who love the subway, love buses, they know the subway system backwards and forwards, and they love this museum. It's a program that is designed to help students with autism make social connections and build certain skills that are hard for children with autism.
Oftentimes kids on the spectrum can have a difficult time relating to other people, but at Subway Sleuths in the Transit Museum, when they're interacting with other people who are also these train enthusiasts, it provides such a natural opportunity for connections.
He started speaking more to us. He started looking at us more when he was speaking to us. It was just a huge change, and the teachers at his school also noticed the same thing. They were realizing that his communication was getting much better.
The program has opened up Alistair, at least, in ways to express himself and to discuss things and have open communication and dialogue.
He would literally dash down the stairs without hesitation, knowing that it was a place where he belonged, and I think that is a really important feeling for children like Philip.
One moment that I heard from a parent recently was that her child now has a best friend in school, and he has never had a best friend before. And so this was a big moment that she attributed to Subway Sleuths, because he learned to make those connections with other kids and talk to other children. And so now in school, he had a best friend.
My favorite part is when I go on the bus. Awesome. And I pretend to drive it. It was so fun.
My favorite game is Hold the Pole because I like how the rules go, and I think it's a fair game.
My favorite train line is the 2-3 because it roars through Christopher Street, Sheridan Square.
What gets to happen at Subway Sleuths is our kids get to be in a supportive environment with people that know about autism and know what accommodations they might need. But at the same time, they just get to explore. They just get to be kids. They get to do something that they're interested in. This is their after-school program. And the moment that dawned on me, I thought this is a phenomenal program for kids on the spectrum. They don't have access to anything else like this.
So am I done?
The New York Transit Museum. It is I just have been waxing poetic about how much I have to get there with my son and my husband. But we are still on the phone with Jennifer Kalter, the Assistant Deputy Director for Education and Public Programs for the New York Transit Museum, and Sara Thomson, who is the Special Education and Access Coordinator at the New York Transit Museum. And ladies, so Subway Sleuths, super awesome, but that's not the only program that you have. Talk to us a little bit about Transit Quest.
So Transit Quest is a program that has now just completed its second year. It is the product of some conversations that we've had about the real success of Subway Sleuths and really wanting to expand our programming based on that same model and the same philosophy of a strengths-based approach, but for older kids. So the Sleuths program is for kids in elementary school, and Transit Quest is for high school age students, for teenagers. So it's a program that occurs in the summer. So while Subway Sleuths is a school year program, it takes place once a week after school for 10 weeks. Transit Quest for the high school kids is based on the same model, but it happens over one intensive week in the summer. And we've intentionally selected a week in August towards the end of the month, right before kids are going back to school. And the reason for that is that for a lot of kids, when they're on summer break, there's the summer slide. And for many students, it can be really a slide in terms of academic skills. But when we're thinking about our neurodiverse audience, sometimes there can also be a summer slide around some of the social skills that we work on in these programs. And so we've offered this Transit Quest program for our teens really at the end of the summer to help them prepare to go back to school around some of those social issues.
Yeah.
So they're playing games, they're communicating with their peers about their love of trains, they're going on field trips. We also leave the museum and we go out into the system on some really exciting field trips, like the original City Hall station. We go to power stations or bus depots, and it's great because, you know, our teens and all of our visitors really that have this passion for our content can really be the experts in some situations, as well as the staff. So it's really fun for us to see them be able to share all of that information that they have about our content with some of our colleagues in the MTA and with the museum staff, and feel empowered about all of that information that they have.
Wonderful. And then you have Special Day for Special Kids. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Special Day for Special Kids. We host it 3 times a year in the museum. Typically, we do it in the morning. We start an hour before we open to the public so that we can have more of that comfortable space for families who may not be as familiar with the museum, and they have some time to get acquainted with it. And then we've also done it in the evening as an after-school event, so that families have another option of when they can come visit us. And we do a lot of drop-in activities during that, including an art-making workshop and having musicians and maybe a scavenger hunt or one of our costume storytellers doing a show. And it's, you know, we just had one recently, and it really shows what a welcoming space we are. When I was reviewing our surveys for that, just how families were talking about in those surveys, how comfortable and welcomed that they felt in our space, and thanks to our staff.
Well, you guys have a bit of a history of welcoming folks with diverse backgrounds and the neurodiverse. This is not something that's new for you guys. You guys are really, you've been a player in doing this for a while. I just have to commend you. This is so wonderful and so fabulous and refreshing. I understand that you also offer Day-Hab Day and tours for adults as well as students?
Yeah, so for adults, twice a year, we have an event called Dayhabilitation Day. That's when we welcome adult groups from their dayhabilitation programs, organizations, to come visit us for a free afternoon. We'll do some activities, some drop-in activities with them as well, and it's just a really pleasant way to spend time with our community. And of course, a adult group could book a tour with us during the week, and we would provide supports and resources that they would need with all of our groups with disabilities that book a tour with us and come visit us. I always reach out to them to try to learn more about the individuals who are going to be visiting us, to make sure that we're providing the most supportive program for them, and just how we can do our best to accommodate them, as well as making them feel more comfortable with what is happening by sending out social narratives and things like that.
And for folks who are visiting from out of town, you know, that maybe don't have the opportunity to do the subway sleuth or the transit quest, or even they're not there for the special day for special kids, you have something really remarkable, that you have sensory kits available when they visit to help them to be able to navigate the museum. Is that correct?
That's right, yes. So these are kits that an individual visitor could borrow from museum staff when they come in. They can ask for it. And in the sensory kits, we would have items like a weighted lap pad, fidgets, communication tools, headphones in case it's a little loud in the museum. So these are kits that really help people navigate the space in a way that's comfortable for them.
And one of my favorite things about this is that you have spaces there where they can practice riding the train. So and work out social things. I mean, we talk on the show a lot about how rehearsal is the key to a lot of success with a lot of different things in life. And especially if you have a sensory kid who might be overwhelmed being on a train, and there's the flashing lights, and there's people, and people get on and off, and there's all these different new and different noises. I love the fact that there is a space that they can go and they can rehearse, and you call it being ready to ride. I absolutely love that you guys have that available, and I love that they can. You guys talk about the social etiquette nuances of the train too. I wish you gave this to everybody. Do you give this to everybody?
Well, it's funny because we were just talking about this yesterday, and we would love to make it available to all sorts of people. We would love for it to be available to anyone who is trying to navigate the New York City subway system. You know, when you first moved to New York, if you're not a native New Yorker, I was not a native New Yorker when I came here 20 years ago, and it's overwhelming. There's a lot to think about, and I think it's a really helpful program for anyone starting out in New York City and being comfortable with riding on their own.
Well, what a wonderful museum you guys have, and we're thrilled to feature you guys here. We want to encourage people, especially if you are within the New York area, you've got to get to this museum. Check out the programs, go on their website, you know, plan your day ahead of time. It may be that the first time you go, you want to go for a special day for special kids, or maybe you can get your child or teenager or adult signed up for subway sleuths or transit quest, but definitely visit this museum. And so the website again is, and I'm asking you guys because I don't know.
Our website is nytransitmuseum.org/access. You want to check out the access program?
Yes.
Okay, we have lots of stuff on our list.
Okay. Well,
That's great. Thank you.
I appreciate you ladies for being here, and thank you so much, and hopefully I'll get to see you soon.
Thank you so much. It was great talking with you, and yes, please reach out if you're in New York.
I will. All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Really remarkable, you guys. I just, if you are within driving distance, get yourself there, because What a great, great resource for us and for our kids. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Can you believe? Can I just take 1 second to say, you know, we had the Easy Hold lady on Thursday, and we were talking about this grip to being able to hold, which is what kids do early with crayons. And then she gave me one for my pencil, and then I quickly saw that there is a way to do it for the tripod grasp, which we're teaching our kids, and that's all I've been doing ever since. So you put one finger through, and then it automatically makes it so that you do the tripod grasp, and my hand has hurt less. Hello, how fabulous is this thing? And I've tried a lot of the tripod grasps before, did not love them, but I am loving this. Just want to say it's that Easy Hold thing. All right, that's it for today, but tomorrow we have a best of, and then on Wednesday we have Ask Evelyn Kung. On Thursday we have autism expert Romelia Manukel, excuse me. And on Friday, we have Megan Dolan, who is the Lemur mom, Wendy Hammers, and Darren Sush. We've had Dr. Sush on before, and he's going to be talking with us. I don't remember specifically about what, but he is a board certified behavior analyst, and I don't remember what the topic is, but I know that it's fabulous because I specifically asked to get him back on here, and he's really remarkable. You guys are going to love him. So all that is happening the rest of this week. Until tomorrow, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.